Big Questions with the Dead Milkmen.
Welcome to this week's question, which is tell us about your favorite bands whose native tongue is not your own. Also, how important is understanding the language or lyrics of music to you? I thought of this because on Saturday I went to see Os Mutantes at the Ardmore Music Hall. My friend Jason got a ticket for me. And it was amazing. The guy who sang and played guitar is like an original member, and they've been around since like the early mid-60s. And his like female companion has also been in the band, and they sang a lot in Portuguese because they're from Brazil. And I actually met a guy named Jeff. He was like, "Hey, you're dancer," and we were talking, and he was with, I can't remember if it was like a relative or a friend who spoke Portuguese. So it just got me thinking, like, how important is it to people to for me, I have trouble understanding English in music, so it's not that important to me. But when I feel like there's a connection or that I want to look into it, I will look it up, which I feel grateful in this day and age we can do that, because you used to have to rely on like record sleeves and inserts, and not everybody did that. You guys were pretty good with that, mostly. But yeah, so I don't know. There's a lot of bands, like I thought of a whole bunch. And Jacques Brel from the 60s. And yeah. What got me thinking about him was also that Rod McEwen did a lot of translations of his stuff for
Rod
Scott Walker.
Mr. McEwen.
And there's this comp of like 60s psychedelic Turkish music is one of the greatest. We touched this guy. It's one of the greatest compilations of music ever. And I don't understand one word of it. They could be telling me all sorts of things that are just awful. It got me thinking about when the Low Budgets were on tour in Europe and we were in France. Joe, you remember we stayed at that house and we couldn't find the camera? We were like, we couldn't find Tingle's camera. And we were like, where are his camera? Yeah. And the guys were showing us these videos of these bands from France that were like condoning thievery and violence, and like we were like, huh. What happened to the camera? And then by the end, they were like, "Oh, is this the camera?" It was like behind the TV. But I remember thinking, like, I wasn't that interested in the music with that band anyway. But I remember thinking then too, like, I don't understand what they're saying, but they're saying like not stuff that I agree with. Like how much am I going to sit there and like? But we also enjoyed a lot of bands overseas that we had no idea, in different countries even, that we didn't know what they were saying, but. I don't know. I guess what I was coming to is like music's kind of this, it's a cliche, but it is like a universal language. Like you can just kind of connect with people on rhythms and tones and even just like inflections of the voice that you don't understand. So yeah, I guess that was pretty much what I wanted to say.
As a general rule, for bands singing in French, they're singing about Le Genius of Jerry Lewis. That's
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah, I was going to answer the second part of the question first, which was I listen to music mostly, the music part of the song mostly, and can never remember song lyrics. And I hear the singing sort of more as a sound as part of the song. Even if the singer's foreign, I can still get a feeling or a mood usually from the song and get the gist of what the song is about. As for favorite bands, the one that comes to mind to me is Dengue Fever. a band actually formed in California, but they perform songs from mostly from Cambodia, and they found a singer who was a popular singer in Cambodia and emigrated to the U.S. Named, so I'm pronouncing her name, Chhom Nimol, and she sings in the Khmer language from Cambodia. So I really like their stuff. I got to see them live. I believe we were at the Fun Festival in 2008, the first sort of reunion show that we played. And it was great to see them there. I'd already been hip to what they were on about. So that band comes to mind. That being said, I have lots of different songs in my MP3 collection in different languages. I searched and, got stuff in French, Corsican, Swahili, Spanish, and German, I'm sure. So yeah, it doesn't really matter much to me what language it's in. The song will still come through.
Yeah, again, wherever you go, people are all the same. They're scum. So all right, Dan, first of all, let me start by saying this is one of my favorite questions. And not just because I'm very tired and I didn't have a lot of time to do writing for this show, so I can just hold things up. But I think it is a very, very good question. Second thing I'd like to point out, though, is that English was good enough for Jesus Christ, so it should be good enough for everybody else. All right, so let's start with some stuff. First, I want to mention the band Healong, which I don't have to tell a lot about because they have millions of fans and they're so big, I can't even get a meeting with them. And I think to get a meeting with them, you have to like scream into a ram's horn or something. But I do want to produce that next album. All right. So, by the way, I am uniquely qualified, believe it or not, to talk about this because I used to write a column about world music for many years for the Philadelphia City paper. And I used to actually get paid for it. And my column was called, what?
Aid or Invade.
Aid or Invade. Yes, my column was called Aid or Invade. And I actually had the record for the number of death threats received by a writer. That's not a joke. That is absolutely true. I would get my life threatened after every Aid or Invade came out. So I mentioned Healong. I want to mention I have a thing for ancient Greek music. And the great thing about this is if you sing along, anybody who could correct you has been dead for like 3,000 years. Skoinosudakne. I made Dean get up and walk out. All right, up next, it's going to be, I have a love of gypsy music. I guess he's bringing the kitty in. I have a love of, here, he's lost it. He's finally gone over the edge, and his invisible friend is here. Tarif de Haduks, I love Romanian gypsy music.
Oh, yeah.
There are a couple of these that you can get. They're all fantastic. This is really, really good. And I like sort of primal, wild, the pure stuff is what I like to call it. This is Anna Alkalate, and she does, and a lot of these I managed to get when I was reviewing stuff, but Sephardic Jewish music, which is fantastic, and you don't get enough of. So you can get your hands on any Sephardic Jewish music out of Spain. You will love it. Narthex, I don't know where they're from. I don't speak a word. I can't figure that one out. But my favorite thing that I have in my collection, and it's my favorite band who speak a foreign tongue, are the Master Musicians of Jajouka. And this is called Apocalypse Across the Sky. This should be in everybody's record collection. It is sort of the hard heroin uncut of rock and roll. It's very primal, very intense. I first heard about it when I was reading an article many years ago about a guy who was traveling in Morocco. And he heard about a government official who had to go to Jajouka to teach the dead to stay dead. And I thought, oh my God, that's amazing. And then I remembered that Brian Jones had recorded them. If you're not familiar with them and you listen to a lot of like sort of normal music, they'll probably stir up feelings that you may not be familiar with, and you might notice changes in your body. So they are really, really intense. Now, is it important? The words. Yes, words mean things. Words are very important. Would you like satisfaction as much if Keith Richards was singing, I can't wait to shop at Kroger? No, no. Words are super important. I don't want to be singing along with something and find out it's their equivalent of Seasons in the Sun or some sort of Weezer song. Now again, Dan, as you pointed out, it was very tough in the pre-internet days to find out what you were saying. The internet has made it a lot easier. You used to have to jump through so many hoops, write the record company, like just do anything you could do to find out what they were saying. I love to know what the band is saying because as a person who writes lyrics, there are expressions and ideas out there that we don't quite have in English. And also how you speak affects how you think. The example is that in German, a bridge is like der, I can't remember the German word for bridge, where it's le in French. So French put a feminine aspect to it. So the French tend to see bridges as light and airy structures, and the Germans as these solid structures. Thinking the French also like Jerry Lewis, so their bridges aren't going to last. Now, wow, this lady, I built a bridge. I would just like to say that in conclusion, every small village somewhere has their own version of the Ramones. Go out and find that band and learn their songs. And if you can, like, I know at one point somebody's going to be like, well, in like the wilds of Estonia or something. And well, what are they singing about? And they're like, they want to sniff some glue. So those are pretty much my thoughts.
Cool.
Well, one of my favorite bands is from Trble, I don't even know how to say it right. Trble, Slovenia.
Trbole.
It was Yugoslavia when they formed in 1980. And they are, of course, Libach. They sing in both Slovenian and English. They might sing more in English than Slovenian. I didn't do the math. But it's like, I don't mind. I like it when they sing in Slovenian. It actually sounds really cool. And I have no idea what they're singing most of the time, except their latest CD, they have translations. It's all in Slovenian, and it's pretty cool. They have translations. And it's not that much singing either on that album. But to answer the other part of the question, I do care about lyrics, but just like with Dan, I mishear them, but I think you can tell if they're meaningful, even if they're in another language, just by the way I think people sing. At least maybe they're more meaningful to me when I don't understand them. I don't know. That makes no sense at all. But another band I like, I'm going to mention, it is also not an English speaking band, but they do sing in English and in their native tongue of Portuguese. And they are called Beautify Junkyards. I think I mentioned them on this. I know I recommended them on this show before. They're from Lisbon, Portugal. Interestingly enough, they do on their debut album, which is all covers. Only one of the songs is not in English, and that is a cover of the band Os Mutantes that Dan mentioned from Brazil. And it's a beautiful album. I recommend it. Their English is good. And they do a Kraftwerk cover on that album too, and I believe they're a German band, but that's in English too. I think Kraftwerk may have sung in English even though they're from Germany. That's interesting to me, that a lot of foreign bands sing in English. Like European punk bands that are popular, like the Hives, they're not from England. They're from, where are they from? I forget.
Sweden.
Sweden or something.
Yeah.
And the Caesars, they might also be from Sweden. They all their songs are in English, but that's not their native language. And ABBA.
Los Shakers.
The who?
Los Shakers. Remember from
Los Shakers? Yeah. But Beautify Junkyards on except for the debut album, their other albums are originals, mostly originals. And they do a lot of songs in Portuguese, and I think they're beautiful. I don't, because I bought them as MP3s, I don't have lyrics for them, and I don't know anybody who will well, maybe I could find someone who translate them, but I haven't gone through that step. But yeah, that's my answer. Is that words are important, but I listen to like Dean, I listen to the music first, and it doesn't irk me if I can't understand a foreign language.
Two quick thoughts. One, 60 days until Eurovision. Yes, yes. I'm obsessed with Eurovision. And the second is, I wonder if somewhere on like the other side of the world, there's a band, 4 guys in a band sitting around talking about like bands that, you know, they don't speak their language, and they're talking about us, and it's like, Yuri, I do not speak English, but yet I feel that this band, the Dead Milkmen, are singing about peace and love and many deeply spiritual things. That's why you want to find out the lyrics, folks. Yeah.
You know, I have a comp of Cambodian like Khmer music from the 60s, and there's this incredibly depressing liner notes about like how many, you know, people were being killed because of the content and the lyrics of their songs. So as far as like if words are meaningful, like, you know, in some cases, like the government seems to think so, because they were killing their artists for expressing themselves. And what's interesting is this particular comp, I wish I could remember what it's called. If I can find it, put a link. But it says like unknown artist for some of these. Like this is from like the mid 60s, I guess. And it's interesting that the music clearly has like a American pop music kind of, like even like Beatles-ish kind of stuff, and how music, I guess, spread maybe through the war, bringing like rock music over and influencing the people starting bands over there. But yeah, so that, just to bring that back around as far as like whether the lyrics are important, like they can get you killed, I guess, in some cases. So recommendations.
Important lyrics can get you killed.
No, not even important ones. There are people who this is an area, again, something I kind of know about. There are people who like wrote songs about local birds, and the government interpreted them as wanting to fly away and take off from that area and to be free. In that sense, they considered it a slight against the government. So yeah, you went to a horrible place and got shot. Sorry to bring everybody down, but it's my job.
So I'd like to recommend knives. This is called a butterfly knife.
That's not a knife. This is a knife.
And you know, I don't recommend knives for violence. Yeah. Because I think they're good for, you know, defense. Sometimes I have one on me as defense, but not in any, you know, place where, you know, I shouldn't. But you know, you get that personal touch knives. I'd also like to recommend whatever this hand cream is that Amy let me try, because I have terrible problems with my
I have dry hands
around
right
my
now.
fingernails, like where I tear the shit out of it and like bite the skin off and stuff, because it gets so dry when like I get out of the shower or whatever. But whatever this stuff is, like I put it on, and I'm not directly recommending it because they're not paying me to. So but if you have like dry skin like I do, put some kind of lotion on. I don't like it when it's oily, so you know, no alcohol and stuff. Just
that dries it out even more.
Exactly.
I would like to recommend 2 web pages, 2 single web pages. One web page is called Rotating Sandwiches. And that's all I'm going to tell you about it. You just have to go to rotating-sandwiches.com and you'll find out what it's all about. And the second web page I would like to recommend, the jazz saxophonist Wayne Shorter recently passed away, and he and his good friend Herbie Hancock wrote an open letter to the next generation of artists, and that means artists of any kind. And it contains a lot of wisdom worth considering. You know, if you are in the creative arts, I recommend you check it out. It's just one web page. It's an easy essay to read, and I'll provide a link for it. Those are my recommendations.
First, I'd just like to say, some people call it a Kaiser blade, but I like to call it a sling blade. And then, and give me some more of that potted meat. So last week on the show, I had not slept in a while, and I had a bad head cold, and I did a bit of a screw up. Although I included Velvet Acid Christ in the picture of Brian from Velvet Acid Christ in the big group thing, I forgot when I was reading down the list. Somehow I jumped over that. So I'd like to make it up first. Throw up a picture of Velvet Acid Christ, and secondly, I just want to recommend. Go out and listen to some Velvet Acid Christ. It is in English and it's super scary. Muldier is my favorite album. There's even a Velvet Acid Christ version of Big Time Operator out there. But again, Brian, I apologize to you, B-Rye. But yeah, one of the people who grew up listening to us and turned into an absolute Mutantes. Then up next, the late great actor Hal Linden, who by the way is still alive. I don't know how that works. Once said, animals, animals, animals. Animals are everywhere. And it makes me sick, deep in the pit of my stomach. So I'm going to talk about my favorite animal podcast, and it is called the Tooth and Claw Podcast. And it's all about animal attacks. Every episode is a different animal attack. And before you ask, because I know you people are, yes, they do cover Moe's birthday party. They get really in-depth and really graphic. And the next thing I want to talk about, wrap up here, talk about a movie. And that movie is, well, first of all, if you've been watching The Last of Us and you're looking for something a little bit different, this movie is like The Last of Us without Joel or Ellie, because who needs those characters? They don't really make that show. The movie has a couple different titles. It's often called Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. It's from 1974. And also, it is also based on a video game, just like The Last of Us. Video game from 1974, so it's a little sketchy. It's often called Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. You might also know it by the title Don't Open the Window, but its title most people know it by is called The Living Dead at the Manchester Morgue. So for those of you who like 24-hour party people and want to learn more about Manchester, it is a really, really good film. Again, from 1974, the cast is really odd. It's like they went all over Europe. Like, all right, you're going to be in this town. You're going to play an Englishman, and you're going. But I really enjoy it. Now you can watch it on Shudder or AMC, but also, and I will put up the link. You can watch it for free on YouTube, and I recommend you do. It is one of my 3 or 4 favorite zombie movies. That's in case you get a little bummed out when you're sitting around with the family watching The Last of Us.
I'd like to recommend an album by Libach, which is available on compact disc and vinyl. Thanks to Rodney for telling me about it. It's called Sketches of the Red District. It is very good. As I said, it's in Slovenian, but there's 7 songs on it. It's supposedly it's inspired by their hometown and industrial mining towns of Yugoslavia. The music is surprisingly ambient. It's almost industrial ambient, and it's beautiful, hauntingly beautiful. I highly recommend it. It's amazingly good. I was going to say something else, but I flew out of my mind. I don't know. Just listen to it. I don't think it's on like the streaming services. Weirdly enough, maybe it is now, but it wasn't like last week or the week before. Who knows?
Before I die, I want to hire Libach to play a children's birthday party. Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday to you!
Yeah, I know what it was. Some of it reminds me of what I originally thought industrial music was when I first heard what industrial music on those Dry Lungs compilations, which you may remember from the 80s. But yeah, it
does have a very almost like Cabaret Voltaire, even sort of earlier like Clock DVA mixed in there. But yeah, it's really good. It's like a return to form, and yeah, I'm glad you got that, Joe. But I'm not glad about anything else.
Me too. I'm glad I got that.
Well, thanks.
That's all I'm recommending.
Guys, that was a good conversation.